This is the Freeheel Life podcast number 24. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And it is another week of Telemark land coming at you, as always. And finally, you don't have to listen to my boring voice by itself again. And I've got some guests. But first, newsrooms and notes real quick. If you follow us on social media, big news there. I don't know if it's news, anti-news is that we're going to go on a social media summer and take a little break so we can actually prepare better stuff for you in the fall and winter. So you probably, aside from the podcast stuff, will not see a whole lot of posts during the summer. You may not even care, and that's fine too. But that's happening. Podcasts, we're still going to roll them every week. They come out on Mondays. Subscribe to them wherever you like to listen to podcasts, and we're going to have some fun guests. It'll be actually nice to have some extra time to pull in some cool folks and talk about the free heel, the art of the free heel. One thing I would encourage you to do, send some feedback and questions to podcast@freeheellife.com. I know I've got some feedback from the industry podcast I did, and I'm going to kind of go over that stuff because I got some really cool messages about what people think about that, and also kind of some deeper intel, if you will, about some of the topics. So that was kind of cool. So today, I first caught wind of these guys a few years back when I started seeing some meetups and some edits go up online, as the intraweb does. And Colorado's always been kind of a stronghold of Telemark Skiers from the early days till now. Obviously, Crested Butte, Summit County. There's always a good contingent over there. I also have done some work with these guys on some t-shirt collaborations over the past few seasons for the Freeheel Life shop. And we did some support behind the King of the Heel video competition this year. And I'm just super psyched on all the energy they got going on and kind of the attitude, and just it's just fun and relaxed and good times. And so today we're going to talk to the founders of Telemark Colorado. And I pulled this from their site. It says, Telemark Colorado was put together to serve as the Apres ski bar for our niche knee-dropping community, to indulge in the turn, indulge in the gear, maybe have a beer or two, and probably crack some jokes. So for those who want to believe Telemark is dead, let them think that. And for us, we can celebrate the aspects of Telemark that brings us together and coming back for more. Let's all keep our knees to the ground and our beers to the face. Welcome to Telemark Colorado. So I thought that was kind of a good little intro. And today we're going to have Telemark Colorado's founders, CJ Kochia, Brian Strickland, and Eric Jensen. Welcome, boys, to the Freeheel Life podcast.
What up, dude?
Hello there. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Howdy.
I'm psyched, and I think maybe just to get the voice recognition going, give a little name intro so people know who's talking.
Eric, you want to go first since you're just going to keep on yapping?
You know what? That sounds good to me. So this is hi. I'm Eric Jensen. I'll be the one yapping.
I'm Brian Strickland, and I'll be sitting in the background drinking.
And I'm CJ Kochia, or Kosia, or Kochi, depending on if you ask me, my mom, or my dad.
I'm going to start calling you Coachies. I like that. I think we should go with Coach.
Dude, I've heard it all. In elementary school, like, you get called on the intercom to go to the office or whatever, and I would get, like, Coco and Kokia, and pretty much every iteration that wasn't even close, aside from, like, what it really was. But mind you, I was in Florida, too, so, like, you wouldn't expect them to say it appropriately either.
Yeah, that's the worst. And you go by CJ. Yeah, what's your name? Give us divulge. What is? I want to hear what CJ is actually.
The CJ is for Charles James, and then there's a second middle name in there, which is Russell.
Charles James Russell, Coach.
Yeah.
Figure it out, man.
That's solid.
Figure it out.
That's amazing.
My
Yeah.
parents were hoping I'd be way classier than I turned out to be, so we just went back to CJ to be honest with ourselves.
I'm actually proud that I asked that question because what's really funny is I don't know. Have you guys ever met JT Robinson? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Oh, you have met him. Dude, I knew that guy for probably like 10 years before I realized that we both had the same name. I never asked what the JT was. And then I found out his name was Josh, and I was like, what? I'm like, your name's Josh? I think I was like at his house, and his mom was like, hey, Josh, come over here. And I like looked over, and she's like, no, not you, like my son. And I'm like, what? His name's Josh? I was like,
who?
What the? Yeah, that's kind of funny. So.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've known CJ for almost a decade now, and he has I've watched him introduce himself to many people, and every single time it's a different saying of the last name. So I have no idea. No, your guess is as good as mine.
That's hilarious. So I was gonna say, where? Okay, CJ, you grew up in Florida, right?
I did, yeah.
What part of Florida?
New Smyrna Beach, so it's East Coast, like 20 minutes south of Daytona Beach.
Got it. And where?
Lots of telemark skiing in Florida.
Yeah.
Swamp skiing. I love it. Where? Eric, where are you from?
I grew up in Connecticut, just south of Hartford. Not the like Connecticut everyone thinks of, but the kind of normal middle class Connecticut.
like Danbury.
Not like Danbury, although I have spent some time in Danbury. No, kind of in the Connecticut River Valley. There's it's just a bunch of woods and farms and stuff.
Is that a Powder Ridge area?
That is Powder Ridge area. Look at you.
Hell yeah,
no. When that was our in middle school, that was where the ski club went to Powder Ridge.
That's on my hit list.
It's hilarious. I actually didn't even know it was still open, but it's got, I don't know, maybe 200 feet of vertical.
Yeah, you got
it does sport a black diamond, although it is what it is.
Debatable.
Yeah, but I grew up skiing in Vermont, so I got to upgrade a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, that's always I never hit. I know Powder Ridge. You got Tomahawk, I think, and Summer something.
Let's see. There's Ski Sundown. There's a couple in Massachusetts.
Wachusett.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got some weird ones, and I have a weird list of stuff that I like always want to hit, and so there's I think one of the weirdest ones in Mass I hit was called Blue Hills. It was. Yeah. Do you know where that is? It's like
I do know where that is.
It's like a city park. It's hilarious.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny skiing out those ways.
Yeah. Where in Vermont were you going up to normally?
So I grew up skiing at Okemo, but then my parents have a place up at Jay Peak, so that's where I still consider it home mountain.
Yeah, that's the money spot for sure. It's cool.
Yeah, Jay Peak's the best. Shout out to Jay Peak.
That place is cold.
Yeah, it's absolutely frigid.
Ice coast.
Yeah, super ice coast. What, Mr. Strickland? Where are you from?
Georgia.
Really?
South swamp ass Georgia.
Really? No way.
Yeah, I grew up on St. Simons Island down south, almost in Florida, skateboarding and surfing.
Oh, that's amazing. So where did you guys? Okay, so where did you guys meet up in Colorado? Like, how did that all come? How did you guys meet?
Well, let CJ take.
Give me your romance. CJ, give me the romance story. How did it all come together?
Well, first off, I want to say, I don't know, Brian, if you noticed, but Josh clearly didn't research the ski areas in Georgia and Florida, so I'm a little upset about that.
Not one mention of any of the good hills.
I want you to know that I don't know of any, but I do know, and I talked about it in a previous podcast. If you guys want to go with me, Gatlinburg, Tennessee is on my hit list. You can
Josh, first place I ever skied, and the first 3 times I ever went skiing was Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
See, that's what I'm talking about. See, I know what's up.
That's the first place I ever snowboarded at.
Really?
Was Gatlinburg, yeah.
Yeah, it's got like a longer name too, like Gatlinburg Ober something or other, but
it's been a minute since I've been there, but that place is pretty special, and has quite the storied history. It's worth a visit.
Yeah, well, and it's been on my list forever because actually Noah Howell from the Powder Whores skied there one time, and he came back and he's like, dude, I skied in Tennessee and it was super wild. I don't know if this is true. Maybe someone can verify this, but he came back and he's like, dude, it was so weird. He's like, I was skiing down at night skiing and there was ski poles everywhere all over the run. And he couldn't figure out like what was going on. And so takes the run down, gets to the lift, and there's a barrel of ski poles. And so apparently when people would crash, they would just like ditch their poles wherever they landed, and then they would pick up a fresh set at the bottom, and then they'd go up. And then I don't know. He might have been bullshitting me on that one, but
no, that sounds like super proper Southern ghetto bullshit. I like it. I like it a lot.
Like I was like, oh, I gotta go there for sure. Then so all right, so I did a little. That was the closest guess I had, so I'm glad you guys actually have been there. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
All right, but I'm sidetracking. How'd you meet?
So I met Brian first, and it was God. It's sad that I remember this. It was in 2010. It was at an old Chicago, in Louisville, Colorado, and I was there with a buddy and a girlfriend at the time. And this like weird looking dude walks up to the table that clearly knew my friend and started just like yapping for a bit. We did our kind of like subtle hello, like it's kind of weird that we don't know each other sort of thing, and ended up being Brian. And I remember Brian walking away and Darren just looking over and just being like, that dude's trouble, and just pointing over at him. And and so that was like the first time I met Brian. And I didn't really think much of it, but I grew up in Florida just like Brian had grown up in Georgia as a skateboarder. Like I grew up surfing, kind of had like a weird thing with that scene, and then swapped over to skateboarding. So when I moved to Colorado in 2006, that was really kind of all I was doing, and the only way I was really meeting new friends here, because I wasn't going to like football games or whatever, which was like the easy social way to meet people. And sure enough, Brian started to like show up at kind of these, us meeting up to go skateboarding and stuff. And that's kind of where our weird relationship started. So, I mean, it really started with like skateboarding, and then going on, I think like I went on my first trip with him to like San Francisco or something, riding in the car with him for a big skate meetup for that. So yeah, it was old Chicago, meeting up through skateboarding, like with no awareness of like skiing or anything. And Eric, we met like, dude, do you remember what year? Because you moved over to Colorado eventually because you were doing your master's or PhD at CU, right?
Yeah, so I moved to Colorado summer of 2010, and then I met CJ when he was a student at CU as well in the same program. We're both of us were master's students at the time in geotechnical engineering at CU, and he had a lot more hair, but that was, he was finishing up his degree and I was just starting, and he was the kind of the sad student, stressed out, trying to write papers and stuff. And I was like, that guy's just sort of doing his thing. He looks pretty miserable. My degree's going to suck.
Oh my God.
And then he came back to school a couple years later, and that's sort of kept that going.
I didn't realize how smart you guys are.
Smart's a strong way to put it.
It doesn't come out in the language, does it?
No, I'm impressed. You guys are like master's degrees, PhD, and I'm thinking is like I've been to Boulder on a lot of Thursday nights and drunk running around. Not that's about the max of Boulder.
That's the dirty little secret about graduate school is that you're finally of age, and it's a pretty you're all stressed out and tired and miserable. So we did a lot of that on Thursday nights as well.
Yeah, it helps. And honestly, like me starting my PhD program was really like, it wasn't so much that was a life goal. It was more that I thought it, because at that point I was finally telemark skiing and just frankly obsessed. And I saw like going into graduate school and staying as an opportunity to still get more ski days before getting into the quote unquote real life, I guess.
You guys can answer this question, because being from Salt Lake City, especially like in the early 2000s, I would meet, okay, you got to understand, like 20 years ago, like early 2000s, if you were from Salt Lake, everybody thought you sucked. They're like, why would you live there? Okay. And basically it was like polygamous and no booze. That's what everybody thought. So then you go to like Boulder, and you'd meet all these kids that moved to Boulder because they want to be skiers. And I was always like, why would you, what is the genesis of wanting to live on the Front Range and have to drive I-70 even 15 years ago? Please enlighten me.
It's a good question, because it can be miserable.
Because because even back then,
it's almost always miserable.
yeah, no, I'm kind of joking, but I always thought, I was like, man, that's so far away. And CU is a cool school. I get that. Boulder's a cool town. So, but yeah, the allure.
Yeah, I think what attracted me to Boulder originally was, it's just a cool town, and
yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't even like 10 years ago or whatever. It wasn't even something I considered going any further west than this. But yeah, it's not as close to the mountains as many people from not here think, for sure. It's definitely a pain to get anywhere.
But it's gotten further away with time.
That's also true.
Like the plates haven't been moving, but we've gotten further away. Because like in 2006 when I moved here, I remember my roommates, because I was in the dorms, they were complaining. It's kind of wild now to think about. Like they were complaining about how gnarly the traffic can be, and that meant like maybe on the worst day you were doing like a 2 to 2.5 hour shift to get up to Summit or get back. And I remember them talking about the dreams of like, yeah, they're supposed to be putting in a train that's going all the way up to Summit and everything. So my 2006, fresh from Florida mind was super stoked. Like, all right, I'll ride this for a little bit and then we'll have the train and we'll be ready. And now it's 2020 and like the drive up to Summit and back can just be absolutely nuts. So, there's kind of that aspect of like, man, I wish I would have gone back to what we were complaining about in 2006 and done that ride compared to what it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy to think how much it's changed even since then. That's funny that you guys were there at 2006. That's when I was going. We used to rent like the Union building out and show tele movies back then.
No kidding. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
On campus. I was trying to think where else we did them. I think it was, what's that place called? Dark Horse?
Oh,
no way.
Yeah, dude. I used to show my movies at the Dark Horse. I forgot about that. That's funny.
Yeah, switch swap bathrooms, yeah.
The what?
The switch swap bathrooms.
I don't even know what that means.
There's a finger pointing the other way. It says men's go that way and women go that way.
That's right. I forgot about that.
So a bunch of people go in the wrong bathrooms all the time once they've been drinking.
Oh, man. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and that's like the hazing thing, too, is like you bring a new buddy to the Dark Horse and you don't tell him because everyone's got to walk in. Like every dude's got to walk into the women's bathroom at least once, and every like chick's got to walk into the dude's bathroom and see that just grotesque looking urinal setup that they have going on just to like earn going to the Dark Horse for later moments in life.
Oh, that's good. That's a good memory. I forgot about that place. Huh.
The very first time I walked into the Dark Horse, I walked into the men's bathroom. I didn't screw it up, but it was later in the evening and there was a rather intoxicated female taking a pee in a urinal. So just like super confused about what was going on, was just rolling with it though. And I was like, you know what? Good for you.
That's hilarious. Oh man. Good times in Boulder. All right. So you guys get to know that's actually, I didn't know that. So you guys got to know each other in Boulder, but kind of through skateboarding, it sounds like. And then, so like, when did you guys latch onto the telly thing and like, I like, what's the backstory? When did you guys start telly skiing? Like each of you?
So
Eric started first for sure.
Yeah. So I started skiing when I was a little kid. I honestly don't really remember when, but when I was learning, my father and my uncles, all of whom had kids all around the same age, they were all so bored that they started telly skiing just to pick something else up while all the kids were learning. So I've been around telemark skiing pretty much my whole life. And then when I got a little bit older, maybe around 12, 13 years old or something like that, I picked up an old pair of my dad's junk that he had lying around and gave it a whirl. And I think I took like half a lap and almost passed out. And then that was sort of what started it. But and then when I got to Colorado, I started full-time telemark skiing when I got to Colorado in 2010 and been doing it ever since.
That's crazy. Because how old are you, Eric?
Let's see. I just had a birthday. Both CJ and I actually just had birthdays earlier this week. We're 32. 32.
32?
Yeah.
You guys are young bucks. I love it. That's awesome. I was just thinking Okemo, man. That used to have, because I think they used to have the East Coast free skiing open. Are you old enough to remember that?
Nah. Oh, well, I have vague recollections of a lot of
some of those older
random events that my father would drag me to. I know that I remember when I was in middle school, whatever the Telemark Nationals were at the time, it might have still been called the same thing. I honestly don't remember. Came to a ski resort. I want to say it was Bromley, which is in southern Vermont. And my father had a buddy that he went to college with in New Hampshire who used to race on the team. So
tell me his name was Chris Rice. It wasn't Chris Rice.
No, it was not. It was I'm blanking on the name.
No, it's all good.
But I distinctly remember going to an event in southern Vermont once, watching a bunch of pinheads do their thing. You're talking about a long time ago.
You're talking a race, right?
Yeah, it was an actual race, like with the silly jump thing and the hiking back up.
The silly jump thing. And it's called
Telemark racing is awesome. I really wish it was more mainstream because it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
The Rapaloosa. Yeah. No, that's funny. Actually, that is Bromley, and it was part of probably the Corey Anderson Telemark Festival is usually what they do that around, that's actually a funny story. That dude was this old Norwegian dude that kind of predated a lot of the old New England guys like Dickie Hall. And anyways, there's some cool old history. It's cool that you went to Bromley though. That's rad. Okay, so you had some history. What about you, Brian?
Yep.
Where Georgia? Talk to me. What happened?
So skateboarding took me a lot of places. I met a guy down in Florida when my parents moved there between college and whatnot, and I was just skateboarding every day. And I met a couple of people. One of the guys and I just decided we were going to move west, and no real plan, just money in a backpack and a bunch of skateboards, and did a bunch of kind of bebopping around. Landed in Boulder, and then everywhere else I went, I always just kind of had a draw back to Boulder. And when I decided to kind of just stay put for a minute, some old friends from Boston that I used to skate with way back in the day, they're like, "Hey, we called your parents," and they're like, "We found out you were in Boulder. We're in Breckenridge. We're coming to get you." And they brought me up to Breck, and I ended up staying in their place, getting my own place. So from 95 to 99, I was in Breck and boring myself to death on a snowboard. And in 98, I just decided the year before I left for culinary school, I was going to not ride a snowboard, and decided to jump on random Telemark gear. And it was incredibly hard, but challenging and fun. And I never really got it. And then I sold everything I had. Went to culinary school, moved back here to Boulder, and in the early 2000s, bought a house, got married, had a kid, all that kind of thing. And then one of my friends, this guy Jean-Francois, who I was just always doing adventures with, he just told me one day, he's like, "Come out. I'm sick of you not being on the mountain. You used to go to the mountain all the time. You never go." And I came out, and he was on telegear. And after one day, I was like, you know what? That was a good challenge. I got to go back. I got to give it a go. And like CJ said earlier, I was just instantly obsessed, and then just got after it for 6 or 7 years before I met CJ. And just, a great community around Boulder, just lots of friends going up together and doing barbecues in parking lots and just having a ton of fun. And then when I met CJ, I would go skiing in the morning, and I would come back in the afternoon on like a Sunday, and we'd all meet at this particular ramp, and we'd skate this mini ramp all afternoon. And just one day he said, "Where the hell are you all the time?" And that's kind of just where it all started. And I just kept doing it. I kept doing it. He just for some reason, like we just kept over beers talking about it. And one day he just showed interest, and I'm like, well, the first step is a pair of boots. And he jumped off the deep end, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's crazy.
To be clear, it always ticks me off because we'd like be scheduled to meet up to go skate, and Brian was always freaking late, and the explanation always had to do with telemark skiing, which at that point, like, I was snowboarding, but also kind of starting to lose interest in it. And it was like, dude, your priority here should be skateboarding. Like, why is this skiing thing keeping you away from keeping you away from meeting up with us? But it definitely like sparked an interest for sure, especially when you kept having that that same excuse day in and day out.
What do you and I always talk about I don't have enough experience as a snowboarder to know, but what do you feel like there's any parallels, or is it just like you just that time in life
can I take this one? Because
do it.
A really good solid carve down a groomer on Telemark gear is just 2 toe side turns.
That's exactly what I tell people with the shot. It's like hard booting almost. Like if
you can carve way harder, and it just feels so natural. And if you get it right, it's so rewarding, and you don't have that back leg pain. And I'm not knocking snowboarding. I never will. It was 13 years of my life. But the turn has completely changed how I look at the mountain and the way that I want to go have fun going downhill.
I love that. And what about you, CJ? Like, were you like a park rat, kind of like more urban kind of stuff, or were you more like a powder guy?
For snowboarding?
Yeah,
or
for snowboarding.
For telly?
Just coming from the skate stuff, I'm curious, like what kind of.
Yeah, I mean, so I started going up to the mountains with some friends that I met in the dorms, and they all grew up in Colorado, and they were all super park centric. So it was really just honestly like spending a lot of time in the park. And really the first reaction was the fact that like once the snow started falling, I kind of lost skateboarding a little bit where I couldn't do that. So it's like, well, crap, I guess I'll snowboard. And being introduced to the park, it kind of has the same vibes, right? Of like trying to huck your meat onto a rail or a jump or something like that. And it was definitely motivating to be with people that had grown up doing it, because then you always have that challenge of like trying to keep up with them, even if you're some dude from Florida that's never really been on a board all that much, aside from, going to Gatlinburg for like a weekend or whatever. So it was mostly just like park riding. But like I mentioned, it got to a point where I just wasn't going all that often. I think I just kind of lost interest, where it felt like if I wasn't trying to like get hurt in the park, then I wasn't really excited anymore. Yeah. And I think that's really where the Telemark kind of interest came up, because Brian was super into it, and we had this good bond through skateboarding. And finally it must have happened at like a Buffalo Wild Wings. If I had to bet money, it was like the decision was probably made at a Buffalo Wild Wings one summer where we were chatting, and I just like finally let Brian talk me into trying Telemark for a season, and it was kind of a cool idea to me. It's like, well, crap, I could like try to learn how to ollie for the first time once again, like I've never been on parallel skis, never done any of that. It'd be really cool to like put myself completely out of my comfort zone and try something again. And sure enough, like, dude, the first day was brutal. I'm sure Brian took me out on the first day, and it was just absolutely brutal.
Well, first of all, he sent me a photo of the end of that day today, just to remind me of like how that was. And my kid was like 2 feet tall at the time, which was hilarious. He's like 6 feet tall now. Yeah, I was a Nazi on the mountain too. I absolutely made sure that he did not develop any stupid habits. And I was a butt to boot, do it right or don't do it at all guy all day long. I just tortured him. I tortured him into doing it right or just get off the mountain. And within 2 months, the dude was better than me. And I was like, what did I do?
That's so funny. That sounds so fun.
I want to be clear, though, that like that sounds like tough love. But what he did the first day when I'm on these skis, I've never navigated on before. Like I remember it was at Copper Mountain. It was the beginning of the season in 2011. So like they just opened up American Eagle, which I'd ridden, a million times on a snowboard, which is just like a pretty basic blue, super mellow.
I'm cringing right now.
we're at the base of Eagle, and I see him just like skate with his skis, and I haven't gone forward, I haven't gone back, I haven't done any motion on skis. And I remember looking at that thing like, all right, that looks super easy. And it was Solomon guns, and oh god, what were the I think they were like the
Targas.
Were they?
No,
okay.
they were G3 Targas.
Okay, yeah, and I tried to skate and immediately like somehow pretzeled out my feet and totally fell over before even making it to the lift line. And like right after that, I was just thinking, what the hell have I got myself into?
This is the Brian's a jerk segment right here.
and we get to the lift and go up. We ride up American Eagle, and Brian's with his son Jackson, and he looks at me and he's like, all right, we'll catch you on the next lap. And him and Jackson just drop in and leave me at the top for like by far the worst run I've ever had in my life, dude. Like I broke a pole on that one run, like a pair of Brian's really nice poles. Yep. I've never been asked so many times if I'm okay. Yeah, like ski patrol, other like snowboarders and skiers next to me, like constantly like, are you all right? and I'm wearing like all of this snowboard gear, which I've always thought that like snowboarding, you're just as cold as humanly possible. So I'm wearing these like,
you look like Mark Frank and like Tech Nine
dude,
stuff.
I mean, yeah, dude, like it looks like I'm ready for an expedition to Everest or something. And I am just like blowing sweat out of every like pore in my body trying to make it down the mountain. And I finally get to the bottom and Brian's looking at me. He's like, so how was it? And like, me and Brian always go through our waves, but I don't think I've ever wanted to punch that dude as much as I did that run.
That's so funny. Yeah, but okay, so but see that's what I'm curious though. So like what made you guys, cuz everyone's had this like super shitty start. A lot, I mean most everyone has. So like what do you guys think it is that like makes people stick with it?
I mean, for me it was the challenge. It was something that was very foreign to me. It was weird and it was difficult, but what Brian was doing looked really cool. And I wanted to try to understand it. If that meant being brutalized for the remaining season, it was definitely worth it. And now looking back, like 7 years past or 8 years past, I mean, it was totally worth it. But I think it was just the interest and the challenge and the fact that it was just so different than anything else I'd ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. No, that's cool. You guys kind of have the snowboard background and then jumping straight to Telly. So like, so when did the three of you kind of like connect on the whole, oh, hey, we all Telly? Did you guys like just meet at the mountain, like at a parking lot session, or like how did that intro all happen between the three of you?
Well, Brian had taught me. So I think I had been under Brian's tutelage for like a season or two or what have you. And I had already known Eric. And I mean, geez, Eric, do you remember? I think at some point we just realized that like you had essentially grown up tellying and I was also trying to flub my way through it too.
Yeah, I don't really remember. CJ and I knew each other in school. So our early relationship was much more focused on academics than it was anything else. But I think at one point we must have just, so well, it wasn't always Friday, but let's just pretend it was a Friday afternoon. We would, occasionally our desks were kind of near each other. So every once in a while you would hear CJ's chair roll back. Like, I'd like to pretend it was 2:00 on said Friday, but it might've been a little earlier. And he would roll back and just like, you'd hear like beer. And then, we would walk down to, the Boulder Cafe, may it rest in peace, and grab some beers. And I think probably in one of those sessions, it must have just came out like, hey, maybe it was October or November, and he was chatting about opening day at A Basin or something, and was like, hey, we're going to head up to A Basin. I was like, wait, you ski? And the rest is history.
Oh, yeah. So is that kind of like where you guys sort of kind of started skiing mostly, was kind of the A Basin kind of parking lot? Because funny enough, that's like one of the only places I have not skied in Colorado. And
no kidding.
Yeah, which is super weird. The whole Loveland A Basin scene. I think I did a demo at Loveland once, but I haven't really like skied those places, which is super weird.
Yeah, they're both beautiful mountains too.
Yeah, I lived in Eagle as a kid. That's actually how I learned how to ski. So like I was more like Beaver Creek and Vail, and lived in Denver during like right before that. So I don't know.
All right.
Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely spent a lot of time at A Basin in those days, and we'll still do. But
we were going to Eldora a lot then. Like we'd show up to campus with all of our gear and kind of knock it out, and then bail out at like 10:30 or 11 and shoot over to Eldora. Which for people not listening or that aren't familiar with Colorado, like Eldora is only like a 45-minute drive outside of Boulder. So we'd get our work done and then just head over to Eldora and do some laps for the end of the day.
Yeah, that's another one I haven't been to. That looks pretty rad.
It's an awesome little place.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy that Vail, it's on the Epic Pass now. That's even crazier because it was always kind of that small place, like up the canyon from Boulder. So
yep. You got to make sure you get there early these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
At the same time, during all this, there's definitely CJ taking advantage of his program and me having a really cool job where I could basically take Fridays off about every other week. And CJ and I were definitely going up for straight Sunshine Park laps all day long, as often as we could, to avoid the traffic mostly, but then also just to hit rails and have fun, and then grab beers and nachos after and talk about what we did and try to film stupid little things that never really came up to be much of anything. But
I love that. Are you a chef then?
me? Yeah, I am.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. In Denver or in Boulder?
In Boulder, I work in a food science lab and R&D outfit.
Whoa. Cool. You guys are smart. Jesus Christ. Amazing.
Certainly eclectic.
Yeah, eclectic and smart. So this whole so you guys all I was just thank you for indulging in that conversation, because I kind of was always curious. I'm like, how did this whole thing come about? Because like obviously this Telemark Colorado entity, like at what point were you guys like, we should like call our little group Telemark Colorado and like buy a website URL and start an Instagram?
Man, I mean, it was kind of like a wild trickle up, trickle down, trickle sideways sort of thing. Like Brian and I always going back and forth to the mountains. We always chatted about how like we wanted to do some sort of project or something, but we really like it never came into fruition, or at least it was never a concrete enough idea where it's like we knew exactly what that idea or project was beyond just like bullshitting it to and from Summit. And like honestly, the idea really came from, dude, like the first time I met you over at Freeheel Life, which was towards I think it's like the end of 2017, like getting to check out the shop. And, you know, I've told you this before, but like I just walked in and it instantly felt like a skate shop. You know, like I walked in, you had ski videos playing I think it's like to the right when you walk in the door, and you had all these old skis hanging off the ceiling. You had the gear on the walls and everything. And it was just this vibe that was very reminiscent of the skate shops I grew up at and the skate shops that I worked at, you know, where we've always got like skate videos playing and like old decks hanging on the walls and everything else. And it kind of like showed me that there is this like another attitude to telemark skiing beyond the kind of the cliche, you know, quote unquote granola, this is an uphill travel vehicle sort of thing. Like it showed me that there is all these other different aspects of telemark skiing. And it really got me stoked and really got me excited about kind of like what me and Brian and Eric had been doing, which always felt a little different too. Not to say that it was special, but it was just different. And I got back to Colorado and God, it was some night super late. And it like my brain was just racked on like what to do with that information, you know? And I just went on to Instagram and created this account and just I had no idea what to put there. So I went for the super creative concept of just all lowercase Telemark _Colorado. And I sent Brian a text just saying like, hey dude, I just started this Instagram account, Telemark Colorado. Like we should do something with this, whether it's like a Instagram, like shirt sticker gig or something, you know, like there was really no
cart before the horse.
Yeah, 100%.
That was your business plan. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, that's been our jam since day one, is that we like sign ourselves up for these things now and then we figure it out, you know, like then sending, like, it gets me really stoked, honestly, because I had no idea what we would be doing, but like the name kind of looked cool on Instagram and I knew Brian and I were like wanting to do this project. So I sent it to him. He was excited. And then we just started talking about like, all right, now what do we do? Do we like make a koozie? Do we make a logo? Like, what do we, you know? Like,
what's your first piece of merch? It holds beer.
Like, what do we do with this, you know? And Brian or Eric quickly fell in too, because we were telling with him at that point, you know, and he had the same enthusiasm as we did. And it kind of, I have a hard time explaining really what the TC project is. And maybe Brian and Eric are much more eloquent at putting words to it. But like, for me, it felt like it was really just an opportunity to share kind of what telemark skiing was for us and to provide people kind of open arms to be a part of it if they wanted to. You know, it wasn't us trying to say like, this is what telemark skiing should be, or this is the better version or anything like that. It was just like, this is kind of our interpretation and our vibe of this sport that just lends itself to so many different personalities and styles and everything else. So like, if you want to be a part of it, that's rad. Like we've got a beer in the cooler for you, you know?
Yeah, that's the first thing I remember hearing about you guys is like I remember meeting you at the shop, and that's cool. I'm glad you and I have had a couple phone conversations about that because like I've always I love the skateboard culture, but I'm not a skater, but I was telling you that the other day that the Freeheel Life shop was a riff off of Salty Peaks here in Salt Lake, which is it like literally because I was a telly kid, and I mean that's so in the 90s going to like. I grew up literally right below the Black Diamond shop, and that's where I bought my telly boots. And there was a couple other shops, great shops, but like it wasn't the snowboard shop. And I snowboarded for a second. Like 88 to 90, probably a long time ago. I think it's cool. I think that's what I picked up on with you guys. Is you guys just had this totally way different vibe of stuff you guys are just putting out, and I think that's the cool thing is like you just did it. Like it's way more. I've always liked that DIY style that you guys kind of have. Like I was looking at your website before when I was poaching that little intro, and I love that you guys like screen your own shirts, and it's you're not trying to like start something super crazy. You're just like, hey, like you guys are providing meetups for people, and like, hey, let's go meet up in a parking lot and hang out with people that do the same stuff. And I don't know. I respect that a lot.
Absolutely.
And I think that kind of, I guess you can say purpose. I don't know what the right word is, but like it came with time, like we started the account on January 1st, and I think I posted the link on the Telemark Skier forum or something on Facebook, and Brian and I were kind of curious, and dude, we got like 100 or so followers that first day, which totally blew my mind. And I think that was when it came to the point, because like if you start something and you get like 2 followers or something like that, then it's like, all right, I guess we're not totally committed to this. But all of a sudden, like people started following it, and it left us like, the cart before the horse thing, like, all right, well, what are we doing with this? Like, what is this whole thing now? And
you're like, oh shit, we have to do something now.
Yeah. Oh crap. Like this koozie better be dope or something, Like,
well, one of the things I can do, I can speak for Eric real quick though, which is not to go political, but one of the things that definitely drove Eric and I was the fact that Black Diamond stopped making boots. And we really loved their boots, and we would love them to come back. But that was one of the things we were like, hey, is the gear going away? We better jump in and see if there's something we can do to like create any hype, any acknowledgement, just make sure the community is aware that this is not a dying sport. Let's make it what we want it to be. And, the DIY part of it is mostly CJ and his art and his like, vision. But a lot of it was also like, I want this to go forever, so let's just jump in,
And
yeah,
Brian, if you want to do you guys want to make Black Diamond boots? Because I know who has the molds.
Oh my god!
Snap.
No, someone tried to sell them to me last year.
Right now.
No, I'm not even kidding. So I got an email last year. Someone tried to sell them to me, and I was like, I don't think so. But hey, if Telemark,
oh, man, I love those boots.
Hey, if you guys want to get into the boot business,
Oh my gosh, but my father still rides. My father and brother actually both still ride their. I think my brother's got a pair of the pushes, and my father still rides his customs because they managed to snag like the last 3 liners they could find in the country to give them another round before they die.
No,
and when I went searching for some, I couldn't find any, and I was miserable about it.
Yep.
That was a pretty unique boot. That's funny too because we actually cleared the warehouse. We cleared the warehouse of the last stuff, and their controller called us and was like, "Hey, I hear you buy telly gear," and I was like, because I've always called myself, I'm like the Grim Reaper of like Telemark. I just like I hover over the shops until they're just like ready to quit, and then so we ended up with like all these pushes and customs. This was like 3 years ago, so I don't think I knew you guys, but yeah, it was crazy. Like people are diehard about which gear they like because that stuff went. If you had like a 26 to 28 push or a custom, it did not last very long. So
No, I made it. I tried to make it last as long as I could. I got far too many years out of mine.
I got 5 seasons out of mine, and I would take the customs again in a second.
That's like, were you guys, any of you guys Black Diamond binding guys too?
My cousin was. I tried them once, but
I couldn't make the cartridges work so great. A lot of people really love those bindings. They just weren't great for me. I was always a 22D guy.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's what I was just gonna say. Is it's funny because like that binding, the 01 is like those Rid Stiff cartridges are like one of those weird. They're like one of those weird things that holds insane value, even though you can't buy the binding anymore.
Because there's total cult in Telemark, and people want specific things.
Yep.
And if you have it, and you, the Grim Reaper, Josh, can sell it to us zealots, and we will buy it from you.
That's funny. I know we started like the 22D guys are always funny because like I'll have Hammerhead parts and they have to send people my way, and people are always like, why won't they make the parts? And I always go talk to those guys and they're like, we're not making parts, dude. We're not gonna do it because they're just like, it'll go on forever. People will buy the Hammerhead parts forever, you know.
Well, if anyone needs Hammerhead parts, just go to this one garage in Colorado at Eric Jensen's house.
Yeah, I've got like 4 or 5 Franken Hammerheads floating around.
Oh, bro, I'll help you price that out. You can probably make some. You can probably retire on that shit. You know,
I probably could.
That's so funny.
But actually, that kind of brings up one of our other central tenets. As we've sort of evolved, is kind of trying to stave off the perceived death of the sport. Is there's so many people making so much good gear, and I'm old enough to remember learning on some crappy old leather boots and there's some nostalgia there that's wonderful, but man, it's so much easier to ski on this new stuff. Like that's one of the kind of things we've been pushing back against pretty heavily. It's like, if we want this to keep going, you gotta go out and, I know they're expensive, but you gotta go out and buy a new pair of bindings, man. They're so good.
Support the companies.
Donald's giving out money, guys. Donald is giving out money.
You can get his name on a check too. So
take that stimulus and trickle it down to your local Telemark company
and go NTN.
and buy it. But go NTN. You trust me, you won't go back. It's fantastic.
No, but I mean, and I'm glad you guys bring that up too, because I think coming from like skate and snowboard, I always try to reference that stuff for people too, because when I try to tell people, like I just did a podcast about telemark industry, like the idea of proposing, this is an idea I've talked about for a long time, but sort of it's 100% riffing off where snowboarding was in the late 80s and just saying, hey, like, do we need our own industry? Do we need our own culture? It's a whole nother topic to debate and stuff like that. But I think it's getting to that basic principle. Like, if people don't want things to go away, they have to buy them from these small companies. Otherwise, they're not in control, like at all. And, it really does. When you're a shop like me or, out by you guys, Confluence, Wilderness Sports, not Alpenglow. What am I thinking? Alpine Quest, even the Cripple Creek guys that carry a little bit of the stuff. It's like if you don't support these things, and I'm especially in today's situation, like this fall is going to be super interesting to see what ends up happening, and so I'm glad you guys said that, because I think that's something people really need to pay attention to, is like, if they want to see Telemark grow, you literally have to, you got to dig a little deeper into the purchase and where it's going and who's going to support you back as a customer, so. Oh yeah,
100%.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of a big thing we started directing to as well, was trying to like funnel support through whatever, stage we were standing on to the shops and the companies that were still hanging through. I mean, we were watching shops that were starting to lose their tele demo fleet. I mean, the shop that I first demoed tele skis at, they don't have a fleet anymore, which was a bummer to see. So kind of one of the big things for us was to try to like put the shops out there that were still trying to be like big tele shops and support the gear and have it where you could walk in and touch it and feel it and try it on and everything. And like get like funnel people that direction, and funnel people towards like Bishop and 22 Designs to support the, the guys and girls that are still putting in the time and the money and the blood, sweat, and tears to like make new stuff for us, and make it better.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's an awesome point to bring up for sure. And hopefully other people, and that's what that's kind of why I was trying to get you guys just to talk a little bit about, obviously you guys have professions and educations and you're doing, this is not like your livelihood, and that's kind of what honestly, that's why I wanted to have you guys on, is kind of highlight that, it's like you guys facilitate like people meeting up and like showing support and having a good time. I think that's super important. And sometimes, people don't realize that like these little things make a huge impact. I feel like you guys are making an impact out there too, because there's not, I don't know. Here's a question I had for you though, because on the flip side of this, like all of a sudden people are looking to you to like put an event on. Like, what's the hardest part about gathering people in one zone and on one day? Like,
I want to take this one on.
I like that I can see Brian muting it, and then all of a sudden it comes off mute, and he's like, "I'll take this one right now."
I will be short and brief, and I will say this: that we are incredibly motivated, hyper-organized procrastinators. And we have two sides of the aisle, and I will hand it off to the two of them because I am the middleman. We have a absolute positive everything's going to be fine guy, and we have a I'm not so sure guy. I'm going to let them take it over from here.
I'm a little stressed out to think about it, so I'll let Eric go first on this one.
Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
you guys are
pretty much we have sort of a yin yang. We have sort of a yin yang thing that goes on where we go back and forth and try and figure out the best way, and it's good. One person's freaking out, the other person's like, yeah, I think it'll be fine, and then we got Brian going between like, I actually don't know what to think. For those who have never done events before, they're incredibly stressful and they're really hard. They're way harder than you think they are. And, we sort of the first one we did was we got in touch with the mountain growing media guys, so Ty, Dave Barry, and Bevan Waite out in Tahoe, and they were making their movie. This was our family. Oh no, sorry,
Telemark Tale.
Telemark Tale. Excuse me. And we got a hold of those guys, and we convinced them to let us premiere their movie in Denver. And then, it was one of those things that, we're always cart before the horse, like we said, and we essentially got them to say yes. And then we all of a sudden realized over the next beer, like, oh crap, we actually have to do this. and we just sort of, I don't know, you just kind of figure it out. So we did that a couple of years ago, and we
had a little technical difficulty, but we're back. So anyways, we're talking about events and how they're not as easy as you think. So
no, they're certainly not. But yeah, we just kind of, we sort of commit ourselves to things, and then over the next, we all sit down afterwards and go, oh crap, I guess we're doing that. And, and then you just kind of make it happen. There's sort of no way around it, that's really the only way to get anything done, is to sort of commit yourself to something, and then you just do it.
Yeah, you were talking about a Telemark
in the situation.
You were talking about a Telemark Tale because you guys did that as your first. Was that the first event?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, dude,
that was the first like big event. So we started the project the last half of the 17-18 season in like January. And towards the end of the season, we did like a big turkey fry over at Apres, and that was kind of, I think that might have been our first run of like screen printed shirts, which was the Alpine is Dead shirts, and just kind of like did a big open arms, like, hey, if you guys want to come, telly with us and hang out and have some food and beer, then come and join. And then the summer hit, and we chilled for a bit, and then Ty and Bevan released that trailer. And to me, it was really an exciting time in Telemark, because like we're used to all the fall hype and like the beginning winter hype of like, a level 1 film coming out, or a TGR film, or a, Warren Miller or whatever. But like, at least in my time telemarking, telly hasn't had that, like a specific telly film to get super excited about. And it seemed like a really cool opportunity to try to get that hype back, you know. And it's freaking rad that Ty and Bevan were willing to put in the effort to make that video, because obviously without the video there's no premiere and there's no meetup, you know. And that was like a rad opportunity to us. So we talked to them, got it set up, and then we figured out that like we had to figure out where to premiere it and like what to do.
Rule number 1 when you start an event, try not to do it with AV needs. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, no.
Oh god.
And, so we ended up doing it at a Crazy Mountain Brewing in Denver.
Yeah,
it's an awesome place. We love it. But they don't have any AV setup really at all. So we like rigged up a screen like kind of in the corner of their wall, and we like duct taped the floor, like the cords that went to a projector, which we had like standing on a crappy table in the middle. It was pretty haggard, but
well, no, the worst thing was though, and by the way, if I could reintroduce myself, hi, my name's CJ Kocha, and I'm the one that stresses out all of the time during all these events. We had like these freaking the Glad double-sided adhesive hooks on the wall to hold the screen on one of the sides.
Really?
And
No
I remember,
stress at all. No stress
dude,
at all.
I remember looking at that thing when the movie was actually going, just like waiting for the damn thing to pop, and I was on edge the whole freaking time. It's like we can't, like, this has got to go well, and we end up having like 110 or like 115 people or something like that show up, despite the fact that it was like an ice storm that came out, which also stressed me out because I thought no one would be able to make it, because who wants to drive around in an ice storm, you know?
But also shout out to Ty and Bevan for flying in on their flight in that horrible weather and getting to us the second before we started the film to introduce it.
Yeah,
oh my
it was
God.
Perfect timing at the end of the day. It was awesome.
That's so funny. That's like such a typical event.
oh yeah.
But we did it again this year with our family, and it was so much smoother and such a great time.
No, and that's cool that you guys are doing. That's what I mean. Like it's. I mean, I just think it's super cool that you guys are even taking that on, because I get how haggard that can make you, especially when you don't have a lot of time to do that stuff. You guys, like, that's tough. But big props to you guys for even taking that on, you know.
Dude, it's hard not to when like you see how stoked people are, you know, like people are clearly like really happy to be going to things, you know, and that's a pretty damn huge motivation to keep on doing it regardless of like the time available, you know.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it shows kind of the community effort. I think if everybody kind of put community effort across the globe, and everybody kind of did little teeny things, because like, you know, it's like when you got families or you know, you're in college or school or you got work, like it's hard to do that kind of stuff, and you know, to get a premiere up and running, or even meet in a parking lot, for God's sake. It's like, you know, it's like, oh, who's got the beer and the hibachi, and it's like all of a sudden it's like a nightmare, and you're like, oh, this sucks, I'm never gonna do this again, whatever, like I'll just barbecue by myself, you know. And
or like you've got like a whole thing of like tacos pre-made or something, and you roll in, and then you park in the parking lot, and you open up the back, and you go, you know what, I don't have a single plate. Awesome.
Yeah, like, totally.
I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah, it's embrace the suck, man. It's never gonna.
Yeah, no, CJ's right though. We've sort of, every single time we stress out and we you know, get worried about what's going to happen, you know, whenever we actually get to the thing and all these people show up and everyone's just super pumped on Telemark, and we're just like, this is great, you know, this is what we're trying to do, and it's really motivating.
Yeah, I love that. And you guys kind of took it up a notch this year too. Like, I remember CJ talked to me last year about this idea for this video competition, and like, honestly, you guys, like, I can't emphasize enough, like, having been around this for a long time, like, you guys pulling that off this year was legit. Like, well done. And somebody needs to congratulate you for that, because you're probably like, why did we do that? That was a pain in the ass.
No, I'll tell you exactly why we did it. We it didn't really become super obvious to me until the first submission came in when during the deadline, and CJ like sent a frantic text, like, holy crap, we got one, which honestly, we had no idea if we were going to get one, let alone 7, and all of a sudden, so I downloaded the submission. We're all stuck at home. It was like right in the middle of this absolute nonsense that we're all going through. And my internet's awful. It takes like a half an hour to download, and I turn it on, and like the first shots that I see are like this incredible edit put together. And I won't say which one it was, but because all of them are great. But like we see this, I see this edit come across the screen, and I'm like, holy crap, what did we do? Like this is amazing. And just like seeing what people were willing to put forward from a year's worth of their work was incredible. And we're 100% going to do it again. That was awesome.
I think it's awesome. And the reality of it is, you guys, is you gave a space for people that are already there. And like, that's what I've always said with over the years is there's always, and that's what's cool about you guys is you're one of these little crews that somehow like materializes in a zone, and you love Telemark and you're stoked, and you guys all hang out and you guys go shred together, just like Midwest Tele Dads. Just like
shout out to them.
Yep.
hell yeah. Just like
everybody take a drink.
Ham Dog.
Yeah.
Just like I think back years ago when that was what was cool about just like early Facebook stuff, like I remember finding the Worst Crew, and those guys are in Switzerland, and same kind of thing. Like all of a sudden you'd see these videos pop up, and you're like, who are these people? Like, where did they come from? And it's literally like 3 or 4 guys or girls just getting after it. And man, I feel like King of the Heel, like for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, is these guys came up with an idea that was, it's called King of the Heel. It was a video competition where they created a really cool little booklet. If you think of it almost like a scavenger hunt of sorts, where you got certain points for videotape. I always do that. That's how old I am, you guys. I say videotaping.
Say the word film
for
Josh.
film roll.
Videotaping.
They're lovely pictures.
Yes. Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. So you gotta film yourself doing certain things in the booklet, and then you get a corresponding point or points for that endeavor. So there was like different challenges that you would do. Anyways, and then they put all these little edits together, and they premiered them. So if you haven't checked it out, King of the Heel. But man, I was blown away, because even when CJ told me about this like a year ago, and then to see it materialize, I think everybody was. You guys must have been blown away, because
dude, we had the same reaction. It was nuts. Like we got, like Eric was saying, dude, like we had the submittal deadline, which was pushed a month. And we got the first one in, I think a day before the due date, and I was freaking out. And yeah, like Eric said, I texted everyone like, we have a submission, like we have something, and they just started rolling in. And then I'm getting text messages and like direct messages through, DMs through Instagram. And Jesus, I might be 32, but I'm talking like I'm 47.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we got that. It's like, holy crap, like we've got some videos coming in. And it was just blowing our mind the whole time. Not only the fact that we got any submissions at all, but the quality from all of the submissions were awesome, because it was a mix between like, these obvious crews that have been skiing together for a while that put together a lot of filming and editing, and families that put stuff together. And we even had a couple of individual submissions, that was awesome. So it was like this insane cross section of kind of like what all these crews were about. And it was just like, it was pretty mind blowing, I have to say, for all of us to like look at the 7 videos and just realize that came out of it, and like, I mean, that's all much more of a shout out to them for putting in the time and effort to like go through the book, do some of those like ridiculous challenges. I mean, so many people shotgun beer out of a boot with their liner. That's insane.
Oh, I know.
And like, God, like putting that together, like it would have been nothing without the fact of them doing it. So it just like fueled the fire, and now we've got to amp it up for next year, I guess.
I know Dayberry and I were talking about maybe we need to do like an old school group and have a team.
Hell yeah.
We can go videotape each other. It'll be really exciting.
Yeah, you can get the VHS only submission or like the telly bumps with a cane.
I'm gonna
like
rent one of those VHS like news recorders for the shoulder and like go ski around with that.
Don't joke. I bought one of those from a thrift store to film like a mini ramp session, but like I bought it, brought it home, and figured out that it's way harder to find VHS tapes, and finally got those from like eBay. And then brought it to our buddy's ramp and realized that the batteries didn't work. So I had to like hard line it to the wall. So I had this long extension cord extending from like me holding the VHS like 40 feet down into my buddy's kitchen to film with that thing.
Dude, it's so crazy to think how, I mean, you literally can film all of that on an iPhone and a GoPro, no problem. You know?
Yeah.
And it wasn't even that long. Dude, like when we were making those Telemark movies in mid 2000s, you were still shooting on mini DV tape. Then you had to like transfer it over and digitize it, and then you could edit. I mean, it's
Did you guys do the thing where like, cause in skating, like even now everyone still holds on to the Sony VX1000 as like the prime camera for filming, but like you would film a clip, and if it was a good clip that you wanted to capture, you would have to throw your hand in front of the lens. So when you're like scrubbing through, you would see the hand come down and know that was an edit that you actually wanted to transfer to your computer.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. What we did is we were kind of ghetto with this, of course. Like we had like another VHS or another kind of like hand camcorder. Because we had like one of those big commercial grade, what was it? Panasonic like DVX 100 or something. I can't even remember. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
So like we shot and then we had like the HD version of it. But then you'd have to like literally we had that attached to like a little handheld camcorder that we put the DV tape in. And then what we'd do is then we'd make ins and outs. So you go like I and then O, and then it would like make your clip, and then we'd like transfer the clip to the hard drive. And that's how you made the clip. And dude, some of those early like the Freeheel Life and Hippies, Punks, Misfits, like that era was the first year GoPro came out. And so it's funny, there's kind of some of these weird like aerial shots. They're not like full aerial, but like skiing over a guy. And what I was doing is I would take a 10-foot painter's pole.
Yes.
That you put a roller on, and I would attach the GoPro to it, and then I bought a fucking deep sea fishing harness. And I would like like the ones that kind of go around your waist. Totally. Which I ended up ditching eventually because I look like such a goober in the lift line. People are like, it looked like some reverse sex toy thing. So
you needed more duct tape. The problem was you needed more duct tape.
Oh no, for sure. But I would literally like put it like in like a fishing rod style, and then I would ski behind the guy, so it was like over the top of him, man.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your 250-point challenge on the 2021.
Yep.
Is filming the old Josh Madsen.
Oh my god, with the 10-foot painter's pole.
Yeah,
I like the one.
I also want to add that I want a challenge next year that's a Madsen challenge, which is ski the park in leather boots and 202s.
Oh yeah, dude. Did you get actually Lauren Griswold? I don't know if you guys have you ever seen that little clip edit he did?
That's absurd.
Oh my god, yeah, that kid's wild. You know what's side story, and then we can start wrapping this up. I met Lauren. This is actually funny. I was a telemark ski instructor at this little northern Utah hill, and I hitchhiked to work every day. It was like a 30-minute hitchhike up the canyon in Logan, Utah. And guess who picked me up? Lauren's mom picked me up, and Lauren was like 10 years old, dude. And we didn't put it together till later down the road. We both like water ramped at the Olympic Park here. He was like 15. He's like, I think my mom picked you up hitchhiking one time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I remember this tele skier hitchhiking up Logan Canyon. I'm like, oh shit. I was like, no way. So that's how Lauren Griswold and I met. But
nuts.
anyways, lots of side stories. Anyways, so for next year, you guys, King of the Hill, is it happening?
Oh yeah, it's
100%.
I mean, we already all have lists forming of like what we're gonna do for next year and new challenges. And yeah, I mean, Hamdog came in and cleared out like most of that list, which gives us a lot of work. 'Cause now we need to come up with a bunch of new stuff, and then we're gonna bump up the points on the crap that people avoided. So
Right.
it's yeah, we're stoked. It's definitely happening next year.
Yeah.
It was funny. CJ, as we were getting particularly Hamdog's submission, and all of a sudden there's the scene where he ate the 4 breakfast burritos, and then CJ texts me and he goes, "Oh man, we sandbagged the crap out of that. That was only worth like 25 points."
I was curious if there was like a size limit that was on those, because you kind of depended where you went, like a breakfast burrito differs,
All right, so you talked about that on one of your previous podcasts, I think, when you were talking with Ashley and Tay.
Oh yeah, Ashley.
And, yeah, and here's the special little tidbit for people that are listening to this particular episode, is a lot of these things, like, usually there's an easier way out. Like the breakfast burritos, you caught on, and when you guys were talking about it, it got me stoked, because there is no like size limitation. It's like all it's got to be is 4 breakfast burritos. And it's the same thing with like the God, I can't remember what we called the challenge, but where you essentially had to ride a rail or a box feature with a friend standing on the skis, like the piggyback challenge or whatever.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I remember talking to Ashley, and she's like, people are going to get wrecked trying to do that. And I had in my mind, like, everyone's going to do butter boxes and standing on it. And like, sure enough, when that went down. So there's like usually different ways you can sneak around about it, which is kind of the fun part, is you got to look at the challenge and figure out like how you can still technically pull it off.
There's some gray interpretation zone to it.
I mean, it is telemark skiing, right? Like, we don't have to be too strict here.
Yeah. No, I can't wait. I hope that Franzia one we were talking on the text before makes it in.
Oh my God.
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
There's it's going to get lewd. I think the Midwest Philly Cats are going to be stoked on that one.
I love that you guys get, and if anybody was offended by that, good. 'Cause I was telling CJ that on previous phone calls too. I was like, like it's important that we don't have enough outlets for everybody to have their own little zone, So it's like I like that those guys have a good time, and I'm rocking my Midwest Telly Dads hat tonight, actually, as we're doing this.
Hell yeah. They were shredding through that too. Like Mitch still tried to switch Telly through bumps, which is just the most god awful thing, and monomark through bumps and everything else. Like it was freaking sick, and we got to see their vibe, which was hilarious and awesome.
Dude,
my shout out for this whole thing will be Telefast Pet Cats koozie from Hamdog 2069.
Yeah,
I am drinking out of that right now.
There you go. I love that. No, I mean, and that's hopefully one of these days we could get a little crisscross going on, because honestly, when I went to Midwest Telefest, it's like whenever I go to these other places and I realize how psyched everyone is, it's so, oh man, it's just so cool to see all these little groups of people all over. And, obviously not everybody has the resources to travel and go, kind of crisscross and go to the West Coast and East Coast and Midwest, but man, I think that's what you guys have given an opportunity. Is it's fun to see everybody be creative, make whatever they want. There's not a lot of rules, and I mean that's what it's all about. It's just being creative and having fun. So that's awesome.
And and the opportunity there too is just like for people that because where they didn't have to do a competition or anything else, they could really just kind of like pick and choose what challenges fit their vibe out of the book, and like make an edit about what their crew's all about, like it's pretty free form. And I think it's fun it was super fun for us to see like all those submissions and see what everyone was all about. It was awesome.
Yeah, I know.
Right. And I think it was just real quick. And I think, one of the other bits of it that I really enjoyed, and I know that we're going to definitely emphasize next year, is like, you can go at the King of the Heel any way you want. You can make a beautiful looking edit where you really focus on the filming. You can do all the stupid challenges and have a blast, or you can come up with an awesome human interest story, like the kid from West Virginia who, produced this really sweet, awesome edit of him shredding, and he ends up pulling down a sweet prize, the We Care award, and it's
Telemonte.
Telemonte. Yeah, we're gonna we're definitely going to try and, give an outlet to as many people to do as many cool things as they want, and, hopefully have a good time,
Yeah, the Telling Monty edit, man, that got me stoked. That was awesome.
It's such a hype right out the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I was going through doing my portion of the judging and trying to pull out the subjective look at the points and the overall kind of impression of things, I definitely watched the Telly Monty over and over and over, because the kid's just got great style in general, and I just want him to make us another one with a full year with good snow.
Yeah.
Please, Oler, bring us snow for that kid next year.
I know that was I think he did that like in 4 days, right? Like,
yeah, it was
that
crazy.
kid rips, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And that phone your mom bump run that he did, that style is insane. It's totally no poles. He's holding his phone and he is just absolutely shredding through those bumps too.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I mean, and Dayberry and I were talking about this in the episode I did with him, is like, I just hope you guys realize, like, I mean, I can't speak for him, but I know I'm grateful that you guys gave a platform for new people that come out of the woodwork kind of on their own terms and have something that kind of like was cohesive. Like the King of the Heel booklet kind of made it so other people could be like, hey, I want to put stuff out there, and it's not just like a video lost on the internet. It's like everybody got to watch it, man. And like that opened my eyes so much, and that's what gets me so stoked, is there is truly another generation of people that are doing this stuff, and you guys made it happen. And I think that's incredibly important to point out, your cart before the horse worked. So
I want to shout out to CJ very specifically. The work that he put in to put together the King of the Heel Telemark video comp edit pretty much broke him, and it did not go well on the Facebook for this year, but next year we will have it figured out. The edit we made is beautiful, and I'm just stoked that it came together as well as it did. Thank you, CJ.
Yeah, thanks, CJ.
You're here.
I might have encouraged you on the Facebook thing too much, CJ.
I mean, God,
take some culpability, please.
I mean, we nailed it with that 8-minute video. It seemed to work. And,
yeah.
Oh my God.
There was some great behind the scenes, like, pump each other up. Like, yeah, this is going to work, dude. I'll totally.
Dude. I mean, I've got a list of shout outs before this call ends here, but like, shout out to my roommate, Christine, for dealing with me when like the first loop started happening, because like it played through and it got just far enough to make me start to feel like comfortable, loose and limber in my shoulders, kind of enjoying my beer and like feeling like, all right, we made it through it. And then it kicked back to that freaking countdown. And that's just when like all hell broke loose, dude. And I'm getting messages on like Instagram, Facebook. I'm getting calls. I'm getting text messages from like Eric and Brian and everything else. And like Josh, you and I were talking, and that was just like an hour and a half of just like, we've got to make this happen,
But also thank you to the Telemark community for keeping those comments incredibly positive during that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
People were there. They really wanted to see it. We had a couple hundred people on board, and it was a trial and error thing. We cart before the horse it again. We didn't pull it off exactly, but thank you so much for keeping it positive and understanding, and eventually getting to watch it the way we all did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. That was a pretty good testament to like people not being complete jerks about the whole thing. So that was awesome. Oh, all right, you guys. Any I know, CJ, you got any other thanks you need to give out? Any of you guys? Thanks to anybody?
Yeah, dude, for sure. I mean, I feel like I can't thank everybody enough, but like, for sure, to start, just the companies that have supported us. We did the first video premiere, which was the Telemark Tale, and we dove into that, totally blindfolded and having no idea what we were doing. And we reached out to these companies like Bishop and 22 Designs and Flylow, and Meyer and everybody else. And they were all supportive out the gate, and that kind of blew our minds that they were hyped to whatever extent to support us. And that really meant a lot to us. And that's something that we got to pass down, over to the people that were attending the premiere. So that was super huge. And also like a massive shout out to everybody that's come to our premieres and our meetups and everything else. Like I'm I think we all are just like completely blown away. I mean, the last time we did the little A Basin meetup, we ended up having like 20 or 30 people just like chilling at the base of A Basin ready for this unofficial meetup. Like there was no barbecues or anything else. It was just like, all right, well, I'll meet up on a Saturday, you know? And then we had the World Telemark Day event. Shout out to Josh for starting that, obviously.
Freeheel Life.
Cart before the horse on that one for sure.
So many people showed up for that too. And, you know, like they're the motivation for us to keep doing these events, and all the people that attend these and the companies and the sponsors that like help us out with it are the ones that make it worth the stress and the lack of sleep and the me bothering Brian and Eric with text messages about like how many people are coming, you know, every time we do an event. So yeah, I mean, just a big giant thank you to everyone, including you, Josh. Like you've supported us a crap ton, and that's meant a whole lot. And it's pretty wild to think of like what we've been able to do to like support the community just in the past 2 years after, you know, making this incredibly creative Instagram name called Telemark Colorado.
I think you guys have done a great job, and also you guys can lay claim to the first Telemark limbo that I've ever known of. So, which I'm still.
And we'll be doing it again for sure.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, no, I was telling CJ after I saw that, I was like, I would have never thought that's how people would go about that, but.
My girlfriend actually won that. It was a really good day.
Oh, that was her? Oh,
yeah.
That was crazy. I couldn't believe that people were like, I thought people were going to limbo like normal, you know, like kind of going backwards. So to see everybody do it the other way, I was like, oh. And then that dude with the beard, I was like, what is happening? I'm like, this is insane.
It was all about the turtle.
He would have won, man. He would have won had he not drug his hand on the first run.
That's so funny, man.
You guys mind if I do a quick shout out to a couple people?
Go for it.
I just want to make sure that Ham Dog, Telly Monty, Midwest Telly Dads, NWTN, Aiden Chance, Abby Nader family, and Marshall. Thank you so much for making King of the Heel an event that we would have never dreamed would be this good on the first year. CJ and I talked about this, and we felt like this was 4 to 5 years in before it would be that good. If we missed Bluebird Day, Confluence and J Skis, I want to thank them. I want to thank Ty Dayberry and Bevan Waite for just hooking up with us and giving us the opportunity to put things out there. And personally, I want to thank Dylan Garner for being an inspiration and getting me into the weird park space that drove CJ and I to break ourselves for years on end to try to figure some shit out. And that's what I got.
Keep Telly weird.
I love the Dylan shout out, man. That's some OG. I got to ski with him, and I keep texting him to try to get back out there. He's a good dude. Got to spend some time with him. So yeah, he's a super good dude and very original. Like, not to take your guys' thunder on the shout out with Dylan Garner, but I will tell you. So back when the first time that guy is elusive. Let's just put it that way, and he's so original. And the first time I ever even saw that, freeheellife.com was like a little webzine, and it was probably like 2004 or something. And I sent a guy out to opening day at Loveland, and he comes back with this photo of this dude telly sliding on the top of the Smith limo, dude. And
oh shit!
Guess who it was?
Yes,
Dylan Garner.
Oh my god!
And none of us had ever seen anybody doing a telly specific rail slide sideways until that. So
I love the debate between you and Ty about whether or not some of those double press side slides were credit to Ty or to Dylan, and Ty just stepped aside and he's like, let's just give this credit where credit due.
100%. Yeah.
I liked it.
And that's what's so cool about Dylan, and he deserves a lot of credit and for coming up with a lot of that stuff. It's pretty cool. It's cool to see somebody who's tagging some posts of him finally posting some new stuff. I think maybe you guys were putting it up.
He was starting to put out some footage over at Keystone and Copper. Actually, like the second to last day I skied this season before all of the mess happened, we were trying to meet up, and unfortunately it didn't happen. But yeah, he was getting out there and just absolutely shredding. Yeah. And like, by the way, for the people that don't know what the Smith limo feature was, that thing was Goliath, because if it's the same feature I'm thinking of, it was totally jacked up on some like gnarly monster truck tires.
Yep.
And super high up in the air. So that thing was terrifying to hit on a snowboard or a side slide on like alpines. Nonetheless, like dig in a telly stance on that sort of thing.
Yeah. I'll have to see if I can find that photo. That's
Dude.
that's from way, I mean, that it really was like 04 somewhere in there. And I just remember being like, who is that? And it was like, no one knew. I mean, because it was kind of that era, like I don't even think, YouTube wasn't even out yet. I mean, it was like nobody really, people just, I think that's why I always respect guys like that. Like they're literally just doing it to do it.
Yeah.
They're not doing it for anybody else, and they're just out there doing it. And I think that's amazing. So I love that. All right. You guys got anything else you want to let the people know? The Telemark world? Y'all good?
I was gonna say I don't have any other shout outs other than the ones that my buddies already did.
Okay, cool. I love that. Well, I appreciate you guys being on. Definitely, if you're listening out there, check out Telemark Colorado, telemarkcolorado.com, Telemark_Colorado on Instagram, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, that is right.
You can find it. They've got awesome content, you guys. They've got some awesome shirts, and they hand screen them themselves, which I always appreciate. If you like what you're hearing here, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can support our content by making a donation to paypal.me/Freeheel Life. Check out the stuff. We still got some stuff for sale on freeheellife.com. It's starting to get a little thin going into summer, but there are some stuff there. Telemarkskier.com for articles, reviews, and you can always email me at podcast@freeheellife.com. Thanks for listening, and until next week, spread Telemark always, my friends. Peace.
Woo!
Ow!
You!